Hello and welcome to the C-Suite Hot Seat. My name is Saf Malik, Senior Reporter at Capacity Media. This is the monthly podcast from the Capacity editorial team featuring exclusive interviews with C-Suite executives from across the wider telecoms tech and ICT landscape. Join us as we talk all things technology, infrastructure, finance and strategy. Ahead of our ITW Africa event, I'm joined today by Ayotunde Coker, CEO of Open Access Data Centers. Ayotunde, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Tunde, talk to me a little bit about Open Access Data Centers. The company describes itself as the fastest growing data center company in Africa. How did that happen?
The history is with WIOC, which is the leading connectivity provider across Africa. WIOC goes back 15 years, starting with building the easy cable on the east coast of Africa, and has since really diversified and expanded across Africa, building connectivity, fiber connectivity across Southern Africa with capacity on the a range of undersea cables, providing connectivity linking Africa to the rest of the world with POPs across Europe, Asia. So it's a wide-ranging leading connectivity company in Africa, expanding in other locations like Nigeria, for instance. And it decided a complementary part of that proposition, of the digital connectivity proposition, would be the data center business, which it then set up about 2 years ago. And so with the funding, and here comes Open Access Data Centers, the thinking being open access data centers providing carrier neutral co-location and sticking to the knitting of it being co-location. And it's great complement. It's very complementary to the connectivity business, which is a hyperscale open wholesale connectivity provider. So that's how Open Access Data Centers came about and is part of the WIOC group, wholly owned by WIOC. And we are building data centers across Africa. We have over 30 in South Africa, 4 large core data centers and about 29 other edge data centers. We have a flagship core in Lagos, and another one coming live in Kinshasa in the next few months. So we combine that proposition into what we call the converged open digital infrastructure. And that's how Open Access Data Centers came about, building a converged digital infrastructure of connectivity and data centers across Africa.
Yeah, and just on that converged open digital infrastructure, what is it and kind of what difference is it making to content providers, cloud operators, telcos and ISPs?
Yes, we believe a significant amount of difference. It really is bringing together the functionality that's required for them, very, very high quality, large scale data centers. And also provide the provision of interconnectivity as required. We're part of the Google Aquino consortium. So to that we land the Aquino cable in our facility in Lagos. And also we have 2 facilities in Cape Town in South Africa, Rondebosch and Brackenfell. The Rondebosch one has the connectivity equipment into Aquino as well. On the east side of Africa, we have Meta's 2 Africa, the consortium partner there as well. We land the 2 Africa into our facility in Durban, and that's also landing in Mogadishu. So what does it mean for the large-scale, hyperscale and content providers? One, we have the core data centers that provide megawatts of capacity. For instance, Lagos data centers at about 1.3 megawatts now, very, very rapidly building out to 12, and then beyond that, an additional 12 in that location. So optimized for what hyperscale providers will require. The other thing here is that we do have carrier neutrality in all our locations. That means that we build ecosystems of multiple carriers in every location, enabling very, very vibrant interconnectivity and peering. We're open to internet exchanges in the data centers as well, which is the kind of ecosystem that really underpins what is required for getting content out through to the eyeballs. And also our core to edge strategy means that we provide, in conjunction with the open connectivity we have, the ability for content to be delivered to the endpoint of use. So, we can aggregate ISPs at each of our edge locations, enables the ISPs in a low-cost way to reach out to the eyeballs. So this therefore helps optimize the delivery of the content for the hyperscale and content providers right through to the point of use. And in addition, we have Pan-Africa coverage where we know Africa, where we are very well respected across the continent with the digital infrastructure we provide. So, and what we do is unique. We are neutral in our connectivity, we're open access in our data centers, we're open access for internet exchanges, and we have a support framework across the continent that enables us to effectively support our edge data center and core data center installations.
And let's switch gears a little to investment. Africa has been described as the next frontier for hyperscale digital investments. How accurate do you believe this statement to be?
Pretty accurate, but the proof will be, I guess, in the pudding as it emerges. There's a lot written about the tipping point Africa is at now for digital infrastructure. Has, the demographics that create a very, very attractive target market. The median age is well below 20. The exact kind of, target market that's more disposed to consuming content, digital content, very, very forward-looking, a significant amount of potential in that. If you look at the buying patterns on the continent, it's what I call sort of the sachet economy. It tends to be in small portions. People wouldn't buy sort of a big pint of milk, for instance. It would be sachets of milk and other products. I think the way to deliver that kind of solution is in sort of cloud technology, and you found that the mobile network operators have shown that when you have a pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-consume type of business model, it can be very, very lucrative indeed. It's the same thing as satellite TV, with what companies like DSTV, MultiChoice have been doing across the continent. So, to this, I think the consumption model really, really suits the continent. Now, the other key thing is mobile broadband penetration. Broadband penetration is increasing on the continent significantly. More undersea cables are coming in. This, and with the kind of solutions we're putting in with a core to edge, converged open digital infrastructure strategy, it drives the consumption of content right through to the content to the key consumption points across the continent. And so with this, I think you'll find this virtuous cycle of increased scale of data centers and also connectivity. Studies have shown that Africa is underserved with digital infrastructure. Studies have shown we need at least 700 data centers of an average of about 1.5 megawatts of scale, and also we know that a significant amount of scale will also come out of the amount of content that's being consumed. Interestingly, Africa has a great geophysical location. It's north to south, in the middle of the same time zone as Europe, and sort of in between the global time zones. across Asia and the US. So the indications are that actually, we will see this scale emerging quite quickly, and I think the continent is at a tipping point for that right now.
And I'd like to just kind of break the interview up with a couple of hot seat questions. The first being, what is the favorite thing about your job?
It's the pace of change and innovation that we're bringing about across the continent. It's not what we're doing hasn't been done before, and I really do believe that we're making significant impact on economies across the continent, and that I find very, very I guess rewarding, encouraging part of my job. It's creating the possibilities for Africa to leapfrog digital technology. And we know that for each 10% broadband penetration you get, you can increase GDP by 2 to 2.5%. Study carried out by World Bank and the International Telecoms Union. And with that, what we're doing is really combining not just connectivity and data center, but the combination of that to drive significant impact, and the innovation that goes with it. It's you don't get 100% of things right each time, and you pick up the lessons you learn from that, and you build out. So it's always a chance and an opportunity to innovate in what we do. And that's a very one of the key things I like about my role in driving the penetration of infrastructure across the continent.
And second, from the hot seat questions, what is one thing you could change about your job?
It's, in one way, an interesting part of the role with the amount of engagement we have to do globally. Making sure that we engage all of our global stakeholders in what we do across the continent. I as part of my role, it's not, but I do chair the Africa Data Center Association. That's great in being able to pull together the whole range of actors and stakeholders across the continent in really bringing about the awareness globally of the opportunity here. But you have to do it, and that is something about the job. But the other side of it, therefore, is a significant amount of travel that's required. It's the reality of what goes with it. So it's a double-edged thing. One, of course, getting out there and making sure that the awareness is there and the potential, and enabling the delivery of new entrants, the hyperscalers, the content providers onto the continent, connecting Africa to the continent. But the downside of that is a lot of travel, and it's always nice to be able to spend a lot of time in one's and more at home. But it's also in a way what we have to do, and one just has to have to strike the right balance in what we do.
That's an interesting answer, Tunde. I've never heard someone complain about travel before, but that's okay. The last of the hot seat questions is, if you could describe the industry in 3 words, what would they be?
Innovative, transformative, highly impactful.
And moving on to kind of the digitization of Africa and how the data center industry has changed over the past few years, could you talk to us a little bit about that and how you see the data center industry progressing moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite pervasive because, there are lots of things coming in right now. Innovation, the innovation and possibilities just never stop. And everything is underpinned by data centers and digital infrastructure. With the area of innovation we're talking about, we now have artificial intelligence coming in. We haven't finished with the move to cloud yet, and pervasive access to a lot of those services that can be achieved, increasing access to content. So that's why we believe the strategy we're putting in place is just right for what's emerging. So we have that mix of the core data centers and the edge data centers and the continuum in between of right-sizing what we implement in different parts of the continent. So you will find, a growth of, pervasive growth of core and edge data centers and interconnection emerging across the continent. Just a quick sort of statistics that we've spoken about quite a bit is that of the entire global data center infrastructure, Africa only has 1%, perhaps it's growing a bit more than that right now. But with about 17 to 18% of global population, that's a huge gap. And it's going to be underpinned by what we're doing in building our data centers to narrow that digital divide in a way. There's also actually what I call the prosperity divide, 4% of global GDP with 18% of global population. The way the key part of closing that gap, the prosperity gap, is to close the digital gap. Of having just 1% of global infrastructure. So the future is much more pervasive data center and connectivity and this converged digital infrastructure approach that we're taking across the continent.
And just finally from me, Tunde, and again, thanks so much for taking part in this interview. Africa has the potential to leapfrog the rest of the world in terms of digital infrastructure and its cloud ecosystem. What do you foresee for the future in that aspect?
It's sort of a transformation, really, because as we have the the expansion of digital infrastructure, it interconnects the world and the world to Africa, Africa to the world. It means, therefore, that a lot more can be delivered from Africa to be consumed globally. So it's not just a consumption of content, but a creation of content. And we're seeing some of that happen globally. We live in a global ecosystem now, of which the continent will be able to really strongly interact with, and in many ways also leapfrog. Some examples I've shown, for instance, with what we've had with mobile telephony, for instance, banking technology as well, mobile money, fintech being key sources of innovation and global leapfrogging in Africa. We did a study of power utilization effectiveness in data centers with the Africa Data Center Association. We commissioned that study. We do it every year, and we find that the average PU in Africa is actually lower than elsewhere in the world. Why? Because most of the data centers are using much newer technology. And these may well be, you will see, therefore, a much more integration of innovation originated from Africa playing out on a global stage. And vice versa. It's not just going to be in one direction. And we will see that divide, that digital backlog being filled in over the next few years.
Ayotunde, thank you so much for joining us today. We've really enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here. Really appreciate it.
You can read more from the team at www.capacitymedia.com and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter at Capacity Media.